My name is Helena Cortez, and today should have been a simple, quiet 71st birthday. Nothing extravagant, nothing special, just another year of breathing, surviving, and keeping my home in order. Instead, today is the day my son shattered my arm and the last pieces of the woman I used to be. I sit on the cold floor of the narrow storage room, the one that smells of bleach and damp cardboard, with my left arm throbbing in a way that feels almost unreal. The bone isn't just broken, it's screaming inside me, pulsing with every heartbeat. My blouse is torn at the shoulder where Louis, my only child, grabbed me hard enough to bruise before twisting my arm back until something snapped like a dry twig. The humiliation hurts just as much as the physical pain. Moments earlier, we had all been gathered in my dining room, sitting around a table I had silently decorated myself. I baked the cake, arranged the candles, set out the good plates because no one else would. My neighbor and only friend, Clara, came with a small bouquet from her garden and a hug that reminded me I wasn't entirely invisible. Then Louis arrived with that woman, Selena, the woman who smiled too sweetly, spoke too softly, and moved around my house like she was measuring what she could take. They didn't even wish me a proper happy birthday. They simply walked in as though I were housekeeping staff rather than the mother who'd raised him alone. Clara tried to lighten the atmosphere, but Selena was glued to her phone, more focused on her own reflection than any human in the room. Louis picked at his slice of cake like he couldn't wait to be finished. I told myself to keep calm, to let the day pass peacefully, but fate had other plans. When Clara left, silence thickened the house. I began clearing the plates when I saw her. Selena, reaching into my purse with the ease of someone retrieving her own belongings. She slid my wallet out, took a handful of bills, and tucked them into her designer bag without so much as a glance around. That was the moment something cracked inside me. Months of suspicion, of missing money, of precious items disappearing from drawers, everything collided at once. "You thief," I whispered, the words tasting like fire. She turned slowly, eyes empty, lips curling into a smirk that said she had been waiting for this moment. She denied everything, of course. She always did. And Louis, my boy, my fool, believed her again. And that was the beginning of the moment everything finally broke. But even as I lay crumpled in that dark storage room with a shattered arm, I remembered there was one number I had never erased. One man who once promised that if I ever needed rescue, all I had to do was call. The door slammed behind me with a force that rattled the metal shelves lining the walls. I heard the key turn, slow, deliberate, final. For a moment, I thought maybe Louis would hesitate, maybe something inside him would flicker and remind him I was his mother. But all I heard was his cold voice, muffled through the door. "Learn your place, Helena. Don't make me do worse." Worse. As if snapping my arm on my birthday wasn't enough. My breath trembling, I slid down the wall, trying to hold myself upright with my good arm. The pain in the broken one was a beast, wild, clawing, relentless. It felt as though it was chewing its way through the muscles in my shoulder. At one point, a wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to lean forward, afraid I'd pass out. Maybe that would have been easier. Outside, I heard footsteps fading. Then Selena's voice, sharp, thin, triumphant. She had it coming. Don't worry, she won't dare raise her voice again. I couldn't see their faces, but I could picture the smugness on hers. She always wore victory like perfume, obvious, heavy, nauseating. Minutes passed, or hours. The darkness in the tiny room swallowed any sense of time. My fingers were going numb. My breath came in uneven gasps. I pressed my forehead to the cool tile floor, trying to ground myself, silently begging for the pain to dull. It didn't. But in the middle of that agony, a thought pierced through. My phone. Earlier that morning, I had slipped it into the hidden inner pocket of my apron, a pocket I'd sewn myself years ago for recipes and shopping lists. It had become a habit, a tiny precaution I never realized would save me. With my right hand shaking uncontrollably, I dug into the pocket. When my fingertips brushed the cracked edge of the phone, a sob of relief escaped me. It took everything I had to slide it out. The screen lit up, bright enough to make me squint in the dark. I could call the police. I could call Clara. I could call emergency services. But I didn't, because none of those numbers carried the same weight as one I had memorized 15 years ago. Aurelio Vega, my former lawyer. The man who defended me when my late husband's family tried to take everything from me. A man who once looked me in the eyes and said, "Helena, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're trapped, call me. No matter the time, no matter the problem." My voice was barely a whisper when I pressed the call button. "Aurelio, I need you." What I didn't know then was that Aurelio wouldn't come alone, and that his arrival would unravel secrets darker than anything Selena had ever stolen. The call barely rang twice before Aurelio answered. His voice was steady, unmistakable, deep with age, yet sharp with purpose. Helena, hearing my name spoken with genuine concern, nearly broke me more than the pain itself. My throat tightened. Words struggled to form. Louis, he broke my arm, I whispered. He locked me in the storage room, I can't get out. There was no pause, no gasp of shock, just a quiet inhale, then his steady, immovable tone. I'm on my way. I clung to that promise like a lifeline. In the suffocating darkness, it felt like the first breath of air I'd had in months. I don't remember the exact time that passed afterward. Pain steals time, it stretches it, distorts it, turns it into an enemy. I drifted in and out of consciousness, unsure whether minutes or hours slipped by. Once I heard footsteps pacing outside, then hushed whispers, Selena's high, complaining voice and Louis's strained replies. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about appearances. Then through the quiet, I heard it, the distant hum of a car engine pulling into the driveway. My heart thudded unevenly. I wasn't certain if it was Aurelio, but something inside me knew. Moments later, a firm knock echoed through the house. Open the door, Aurelio's commanding voice thundered. Silence followed. I imagined Selena glancing at Louis, panic swirling behind her painted face. That kind of voice didn't belong to a man who dealt with nonsense. Aurelio didn't knock again. I know she's in there, he said louder, every word honed like a blade. If you do not open this door within 10 seconds, I will call the authorities and report an assault and unlawful confinement. And Louis, don't forget, I know exactly how to make a judge listen. Selena hissed something, her tone sharp, frantic. Louis muttered back, then the lock clicked. Light stabbed my eyes as the door swung open. Aurelio stood there, sharply dressed despite the late hour, silver hair swept back, eyes burning with controlled fury. Behind him, Louis hovered with shoulders slumped, looking less like a man defending his wife and more like a child caught breaking something irreplaceable. And Selena. She stood arms folded, irritation painted across her face as if she were inconvenienced by all of this. Aurelio stepped inside the cramped room, his expression softening when he saw my swollen arm, the angle grotesquely wrong, a bruise already blooming across my skin. Helena, he said gently, kneeling beside me. We're getting you out of here. Now. Louis took half a step forward, guilt flickering weakly in his eyes. Aurelio, please, let me explain. But Aurelio raised a hand without looking at him. Not another word. In that moment, something shifted in the house. The power dynamic that Selena had carefully built began to crack. But freeing me from that dark room was only the beginning, and the truth Aurelio uncovered next would leave even Louis speechless. The ambulance ride blurred into a haze of sirens, bright ceiling lights, and the relentless throbbing inside my arm. I remember gripping Aurelio's sleeve with my good hand, terrified that if I let go, everything would collapse again. He stayed beside me the entire time, posture rigid, jaw clenched, a storm barely contained. At the hospital, doctors rushed me in for X-rays. The verdict came swiftly, a full fracture, clean but severe enough to require surgery. They prepped me almost immediately. Before wheeling me to the operating room, Aurelio leaned down, squeezing my hand carefully. You're safe, he said. This ends now. I believed him. When I woke after surgery, my arm wrapped tightly in bandages and my body heavy with anesthesia, Aurelio was sitting in the corner of the room, reading through a folder of documents with the same intensity a surgeon uses with a scalpel. He looked up the moment I stirred. How do you feel? He asked. Like I've been hit by a truck, I muttered, my voice thick. Aurelio allowed himself the faintest smile before his expression hardened into business. Get some rest today, he said. Tomorrow we start. I didn't understand then what he meant, but I would soon. The next morning he arrived with a thin man in a dark jacket, Julian, a private investigator Aurelio trusted. Julian wasted no time. We're digging into Selena Carver, he said. Everything, past addresses, aliases, employment, relationships, all of it. My jaw tightened. Why? Aurelio answered for him. Because what she did to you wasn't improvised, it was planned, and I intend to prove it. Over the next 2 days, Aurelio came to the hospital with updates, each one darker than the last. Day 1, they pulled security footage from my bank, multiple withdrawals made using my card, withdrawals I never made. Day 2, Julian found old arrest records from another state. Selena had been involved in domestic asset disputes, a polite legal term for financially targeting vulnerable partners and their families. Day 3, they reviewed the photos on my damaged phone. The ones I'd taken months ago when I started noticing my jewelry missing. I had captured images of pieces tucked into Selena's drawers, hidden in zipped compartments of bags she thought I'd never inspect. Aurelio placed the printed photos on my bedside table. This, he said, tapping them lightly, is only the beginning. What unsettled me wasn't just the proof, it was how calculated she'd been. Every sweet smile, every innocent gesture, every carefully phrased lie. All designed to isolate me, drain me, replace me in my own home. But the worst blow came in the afternoon when Aurelio returned with a grave expression, one I didn't recognize on him. "Helena," he said quietly, "Julian uncovered something else, something about Louis." My stomach tightened, because whatever Louis had unknowingly participated in, it was far more dangerous than a broken arm. I wasn't prepared for the weight in Aurelio's voice. It wasn't anger, not the kind I expected. It was heavier, quieter, almost pitying. That more than anything made fear coil in my stomach. "Aurelio," I whispered, bracing myself. "What did Julian find?" He sat at the foot of my hospital bed, carefully choosing his words. "Louis didn't just defend Selena out of love or foolish loyalty. He's involved in something bigger, something she pulled him into." My breath hitched. "What do you mean?" Julian stepped forward, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, gaze steady but apologetic. "We traced Selena's movements over the last 6 years. She's part of a pattern entering relationships with men who have aging parents or family assets. Once she gains their trust, she pressures the son or partner to make financial decisions that favor her. Transfers, shared accounts, insurance changes." My chest tightened. "Louis, he wouldn't," Aurelio shook his head. "That's what we thought too, but Julian found something you need to see." He handed me a stack of printed documents. Even through the shock and the dull ache in my body, I could recognize my own signature, or rather, the forgery of it. Dozens of documents, authorizations, withdrawals, even a form attempting to change ownership of my house. My house. I stared at the pages, my hands trembling. No, I never signed these." Julian nodded. "We know, the signatures are sloppy copies. Louis submitted them under pressure, Selena coached him." The betrayal was a punch to the gut. Not because Louis was involved, but because he was blind enough to let himself be manipulated. Blind enough to believe the woman stealing from me wasn't the enemy, but that I was. Aurelio leaned forward. "Helena, listen to me. Louis may have helped file these, but he isn't the mastermind. Selena targeted him the same way she targeted you. She isolated him from friends. She told him you didn't trust him. She made him believe you were the obstacle to his future." Tears filled my eyes. Not from sadness, but from a grief that felt almost parental in reverse, like losing a child while he was still alive. "So what happens now?" I asked quietly. Aurelio exchanged a glance with Julian before answering. "Now we confront them. The police need your statement. The hospital report alone is enough to start. But the bigger goal is proving Selena's pattern. If we succeed, everything she's built will collapse." I swallowed hard. There was fear, yes, but beneath it, something else stirred. Determination, the kind that comes when a person has nothing left to lose. "Then let's do it," I whispered. Aurelio nodded. "Good, because Julian discovered one last thing, something that changes the entire timeline of her plan." My pulse quickened. What did she do? What Julian revealed next would connect Selena's past victims and expose a danger that neither Aurelio nor I saw coming. Julian laid a thin beige folder on the rolling hospital table, sliding it toward me with a carefulness that made my pulse throb harder in my neck. Aurelio didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was already telling me this wasn't something small. "Helena," Julian said gently, "what I'm about to show you, I need you to look at it with the understanding that none of this is your fault." My fingers stiffened before touching the folder. "Just tell me." He nodded once and opened it for me. Inside were printed profiles, public records, court summaries, fragments of social media posts, and clippings from local news pages I never would have seen. Each profile belonged to a different man, all of them in their early 30s to late 40s. Each one had an older parent or grandparent listed as next of kin. Every case had ended the same way: financial collapse, debt, asset liquidation, home transfers, disappearances. Selena Carver's real name, Maya Serrano, was linked to at least 3 of them. Never as a spouse, never officially, she always used a different alias. Different cities, different tactics, but the pattern stayed the same. My voice shook. "She's a predator," Julian nodded. "A professional one." Aurelio leaned forward, pointing to one of the pages near the bottom of the stack. This is the part we didn't expect." I looked down and felt the blood drain from my face. The profile was of a man named Thomas Vega. Vega, Aurelio's last name. My gaze snapped up. "Is he?" Aurelio closed his eyes for a brief moment, as though steadying himself before opening a wound he'd kept stitched shut. "He was my cousin," he said. "You remember, 7 years ago, he died unexpectedly. His death was ruled an overdose he'd supposedly relapsed into." I remembered vaguely. Aurelio had handled the funeral arrangements quietly. He didn't talk about his family much. Julian continued, but before his death, Thomas was financially ruined. Family properties went missing, accounts drained, insurance tampered with. My heart pounded. You're saying Selena was with him? Not as Selena, Aurelio corrected bitterly. As Marina, but yes, she was the same woman. The realization landed like a storm in my chest. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't a messy relationship. This was a cycle. And this time she had chosen Louis as her new access point, me being the main obstacle she needed to eliminate. Aurelio leaned closer, his voice low, controlled, but burning with vengeance. There is one more connection, he said. Julian found something that suggests Selena didn't just exploit Thomas. My breath froze halfway out. What do you mean? Julian exchanged a grim look with Aurelio. She may have played a role in his death. My entire body went cold. And just when I thought nothing could shock me more, Julian revealed a detail about Selena's next move that made every hour I spent in that house feel like borrowed time. For a long moment I couldn't speak. The idea that Selena, Marina, Maya, whatever her real identity was, might have been involved in a man's death, it chilled me in a way my broken bones never could. Because death wasn't an accident you push someone toward. It was a choice, intentional, final. And she was in my house, living with my son. Sleeping under the same roof I cooked, cleaned, and aged in for decades. Aurelio let the silence settle before he spoke again, voice low but unshakably firm. Julian uncovered something else, something recent. Julian opened another small folder, this one thinner but somehow more ominous, and slid a few pages forward. They weren't documents this time, they were screenshots, messages. Louis gave us access to his phone voluntarily, Julian said. He didn't know what he was handing us. My jaw tightened. He gave you his phone? Aurelio nodded once. After I confronted him, he looked like a man waking from a long, ugly dream. I believe he truly didn't understand how deeply she manipulated him. I swallowed hard. That was a painful thought, but also a relief I didn't expect to feel. Julian tapped the screenshots. This is where things become dangerous. The messages were between Selena and an unsaved number, one using an encrypted messaging app I didn't recognize. The tone wasn't romantic. It wasn't friendly. It was transactional, careful. The mother is resisting more than expected. He'll come around, he always does, just push him harder. We need the paperwork done by next month, don't delay. And then the worst one, if she won't hand over the property willingly, remove her from the equation. There are other ways. A shiver ran through my entire body. Remove her, my voice cracked. They meant me, Aurelio's expression hardened. Yes. It means this wasn't spontaneous rage or an emotional outburst. Your assault was the beginning of something she had already prepared for. My stomach twisted painfully. So she planned to kill me. Julian exhaled slowly. At the very least, she planned to incapacitate you. There are documented cases in her past where victims were pushed into accidental injuries that left them unable to fight legal battles. I closed my eyes, gripping the blanket with my good hand. Days earlier, I had brushed past Selena on the stairway and felt a strange resistance, like she had shifted her weight too close, forcing me off balance. I had dismissed it as coincidence. But now, no, I whispered. She was testing, she was trying. Aurelio leaned forward. Helena, you survived because you fought back. Most of her previous targets never realized what she was doing until it was too late. The room felt colder. What do we do now? I asked quietly. Julian straightened. Because Selena doesn't know we have these messages yet, and she's already made her next move. My heart pounded. What move? Julian's face darkened. She's filed a missing persons report for you. My breath caught. What? She's claiming you ran away in a confused state after a family argument, Julian said, which means she's trying to control the narrative before we expose her. And if she was controlling the narrative, it meant Selena was laying the groundwork for something far more sinister, something she needed to finish before I ever came home. The words missing person echoed in my mind like a bell struck in an empty cathedral. It didn't make sense at first, not in a way my brain could process. I was lying in a hospital bed with a documented injury, witnesses, and medical staff who had seen my condition. How could she possibly? Aurelio read my expression instantly. That's the point, he said. The report wasn't meant for the police. It was meant for everyone else. Julian added, neighbors, your community, anyone who might question her. She's building a narrative where she looks like the concerned partner of a stressed-out son with a troubled, elderly mother. Sickening clarity settled over me. She wants them to believe I left willingly, I murmured. Aurelio nodded. And while people are feeling sympathetic toward her, she'll push the paperwork through, claiming you abandoned your home, your finances, your responsibilities. It's a well-timed psychological tactic. Julian placed another sheet on the table, an online post from a community page. Has anyone seen Helena Cortez? She left the house upset. We're really worried. Below it were comments from people I barely knew, offering sympathy, asking questions. Someone even said they'd pray for my safe return. My stomach twisted. Selena wasn't just manipulating paperwork, she was manipulating hearts. I clenched my jaw. She's painting me as unstable. Julian nodded. She did the same with another victim, made him look paranoid and irresponsible, so when the legal battle began, people were already biased. And that's not all, Aurelio added. She visited your house this morning. My heart stopped. For what? To clean, Julian said with a grimace. Removed anything that made the house appear tense, broken items, overturned furniture, any trace of a fight. Her goal is to make it look peaceful, orderly, normal. Of course she would. Selena never left messes behind, only ruins. Anger surged through me. After everything she'd taken, after everything she'd broken, now she wanted my reputation too, my sanity, my voice. Aurelio leaned closer, resting a hand over mine carefully. Helena, we're not letting her win, but you need to stay focused. She's acting fast because she knows we're onto her. The fact that she filed that report means she's scared. I exhaled shakily. Good, she should be. Julian cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Surveillance footage shows she returned to your house twice today. On the second trip, she didn't go alone. My pulse quickened. Who was with her? Julian looked at Aurelio, who nodded solemnly before answering. Someone we've seen in her previous cases. A man who works in cleaning up loose ends. And Helena, he didn't leave through the front door. He left through the back, carrying a bag. A cold, sharp dread sliced through me. What was in the bag? I whispered. Julian didn't hesitate. Things from your bedroom. But it wasn't the missing items that terrified me. It was what else he left behind, something the police had just discovered and were already on their way to question me about. I felt a chill ripple down my spine as Julian's words echoed in the quiet hospital room. A man, a stranger, leaving my home with a bag, while the woman who'd already broken my life stood nearby supervising him. It meant only one thing: they weren't cleaning up a mess, they were planting one. Aurelio must have seen the fear in my eyes. Helena, he said gently, whatever happens next, remember, we are ahead of her now, not behind. But his reassurance couldn't settle the unease blooming in my chest. I had lived with Selena long enough to know she didn't panic unless she had reason to. If she'd brought someone into my home, someone experienced in cleaning up loose ends, she wasn't just covering her tracks, she was laying new ones. A knock at the door broke my thoughts. A soft, hesitant tap, a nurse peeked in. Ms. Cortez, there are 2 officers here asking to speak with you. They said it's urgent. Julian and Aurelio exchanged a quick, dark look. They're here already, Julian muttered. My pulse accelerated. What do they want? The nurse didn't know, but her expression suggested concern. They said it's regarding items found at your residence. My mouth went dry. Items? Aurelio straightened his suit jacket, posture turning sharp lawyer mode. Whatever they found, it was planted. Do not speak without me. I nodded, but my stomach felt like it had dropped through the mattress. The officers entered moments later, one tall and stern, the other younger but clearly uncomfortable. They asked basic questions first: my name, date of birth, confirmation of my injury. Then the older one opened a clear evidence bag. Inside it was something small, shiny, metallic. At first glance, I thought it was one of my missing jewelry pieces, but it was a key. A key attached to a tag from a local storage facility on the other side of town. I didn't recognize it. I had never been there. But someone wanted me associated with it. We found this under the mattress in your bedroom, the officer said. Do you know what it belongs to? My breath stuttered. No, I've never seen that key. The officers exchanged a look. We have reason to believe the storage unit connected to this key contains items reported stolen in a recent investigation, the younger one said, including personal belongings of multiple individuals from out of state. My heart crashed against my ribs. Stolen items, multiple victims, out of state. I stared at the key, horror spreading through me like frost. This wasn't just about money anymore. Selena wanted evidence tying me to her previous crimes. She wanted a scapegoat. Aurelio stood. My client has never rented a storage unit. She has proof she was hospitalized when the missing persons report was filed. And she is the victim, not the perpetrator. The officers looked uneasy. We still need to ask a few more questions, the older one said. Because someone made an anonymous call suggesting Ms. Cortez might be involved. A cold shock ripped through me. An anonymous call. I didn't need to guess who made it. But before I could speak, the younger officer revealed what they found inside that storage unit, and that revelation would expose Selena's endgame and the trap she'd been preparing for months. The younger officer cleared his throat, his fingers tightening slightly around the file he carried. He looked conflicted, like someone who'd stumbled into a movie script and wasn't sure whose lines he was supposed to read. "There's something else," he said. "Something we found inside the storage unit tied to the key." My heartbeat pounded in my throat. Aurelio remained firmly between me and the officers. "Go on." The officer opened the file. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, some printed, some taken on phones. The first image nearly made my breath stop. It was a picture of my son, Louis, sitting in my living room, staring down at a table stacked with envelopes and documents. But the angle told the real story. He had been secretly recorded in my home by someone hiding near the hallway corner, someone who wanted him involved. The officer continued, voice steady. "These photos were taken between 3 and 6 months ago. Whoever rented that storage unit kept evidence of conversations, transactions, envelopes of cash. They also kept a logbook tracking dates you received your pension, dates you went to medical appointments, even the times you were alone." My stomach twisted. Selena hadn't just watched me, she had studied me. Aurelio nodded grimly. "She documents patterns before exploiting them. Classic predatory behavior." The younger officer flipped to the last page, one that made Aurelio lean forward sharply. It was a printed email draft. Subject line, "Final stage message. Once she signs or disappears, the house is liquidated. Transfer goes through immediately, no delays this time." The older officer exhaled. "Ms. Cortez, the evidence strongly suggests you were being targeted. The anonymous caller clearly intended to shift suspicion toward you, but given your injury and the timeline, it doesn't add up." I felt my throat tight, not with fear this time, but with an overwhelming rush of relief. Julian stepped closer. "You have enough to arrest her, don't you?" The older officer nodded. "Yes, we have a warrant for both Selena Carver and the man she brought to your home. They're currently being located." For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a genuine breath fill my lungs. Even if Louis had been manipulated, even if he had been blind, the truth had finally surfaced. The officers asked a few more standard questions, then left with the evidence bags and the damning file of proof. When the door closed, Aurelio looked at me with a softened expression. "It's over, Helena." I shook my head, tears slipping free not from pain but from a sudden, liberating emptiness. "No," I whispered, "it's beginning." Because I knew what had to come next, a new home, a new peace, a new life without shadows in the hallways. Aurelio squeezed my hand gently. "You survived something designed to destroy you," he said. "Now you get to rebuild." And for the first time in a long, long while, I believed him. The end.